Hello everyone, I'm back with another video. It's Yom Rishon, Shalom lekulam. I'm going to do a different video again this time, but again the Word of God. I want to talk about my testimony plus scriptures. Okay, so how I came to believe in Yeshua and using scriptures from the Bible to explain it. So let's dive in. So first of all, a little bit backstory or background. I was born in Israel to a family that came from, at that time, Soviet Union. My parents were Russian speakers, and interestingly enough, they came in 73 when Brezhnev at that time opened the gates. It was during the Iron Curtain, but he opened the gates for Jews to come to Israel in 73 from Lithuania. So I want to read scriptures that show that, or that you could see the promise of God. It's from Yechezkel 36-24. I'm not going to read it in English, so follow me. ולקחתי אתכם מן הגויים וקיבצתי אתכם מכל הארצות והבאתי אתכם אל אדמתכם. So God promises here that he's going to bring the Jews back to Israel, which is exactly what happened to my parents. Our people were in, as you know, in diaspora, galut, for 2,000 years, and my parent came in 73. And another verse is from Isaiah 43, 5 and 6, ישעיה 43, 5 ו-6, אל תירא כי איתך אני ממזרח, אביא זרעך וממערב אקבצך. אומר לצפון, תני, ולתימן אל תכלאי. הביאי בניי מרחוק ובנותיי מקצה הארץ. Now, interesting is that my parents came from Soviet Union at that time, Lithuania, and it was in the north. So we have here specifically Omar Latzafon Teni. So amazing, and you could see that it's exactly what happened. So let's continue in the testimony. So I grew up in Israel. Basically, my parents were not believers. My mom believed in God somehow. There was a time when she searched more for God. Interesting an experience she told me was that when we were little, she was invited once to a Messianic congregation, and that was in a time where there were in the 80s, when there were very few Messianic congregations, which mean Jews that believed in Yeshua were gathering. And she came there with us. I was too little, I don't remember that. And she loved it. Everything was in English, so she didn't really understand a lot. But she felt very welcomed and loved. And the next week when she came back, there were ultra-Orthodox who were throwing stones at the congregation. And so she never came back again. But amazingly, God did not forget her. So that was one experience that I don't remember, but my mom told me. And later on, I just grew up, secular. We learned about Christianity at school a little bit, but mainly in the context of Christians persecuting Jews. And I remember that one of the reasons they were persecuted Jews was told to us is that we supposedly killed Jesus. And when I learned that Jesus was Jewish, I was wondering back, I remember at school, I had that thought, why would Gentiles persecute the Jews for killing another Jew? Even if it was true, it's an eternal Jewish thing. I didn't understand the whole thing. I didn't know anything about the Romans, and I didn't know anything about the New Testament, nothing at all. And I wasn't really interested, just a typical teenage, kind of like involved more in feminism and things like that, and I was totally, not thinking about God, let's say, I would say the least, but kind of like searching in a way in other areas. So when we came, my parents, when I was 20, fast forward 20 years, my parents decided to move to Czech Republic for different reasons. I'm not gonna go into them here, but for me, it was a great adventure, a great experience. So we all moved to Czech Republic. And when I came there, I remember I had that thought, because before that I had never been among Gentiles or more, I was always only in a Jewish environment. So I was kind of like connecting God with Judaism and Jews. And when I came there and I saw so many people that were not Jewish and, just had a very, comfortable, normal life, I was thinking, what about them? And I think that God put that thought in my head. Like God must have a plan for them as well. And the verse that now comes to my mind when I think about that is from Bereshit כ"ב 18, Genesis 22:18, והתברכו וזרעך כל גויי הארץ, עקב אשר שמעת בקולי. So God has promised to Abraham that he's going to bless all the world, basically, by his offspring, which is Yeshua. And I could see that. Of course, I didn't realize anything and I didn't know anything about what I'm talking about here, but I could see that they also have some share in God, that they must be a creation of God as well. And I also think of Bereshit י"ב 2 ו-3, Genesis 12, 2 and 3, ואעשיך לגוי גדול, ואברכך ואגדלה שמך, והיה ברכה. ואברכך מברכך ומקללך האור, ונברכו בך כל משפחות האדמה. So again, the blessing of God on all the people of the earth. And Czech Republic was once a Christian nation. So and I pray that it will be again, of course. But interesting, I could see that. I could see the remnant. I could see that even though I didn't understand any of that. So that's the first verse that comes to my mind when I think about my testimony in that sense. So living in Czech, of course, was difficult in the beginning. Didn't have any friends, only my sisters, my mom. So kind of felt isolated, but very fast, I have to say, I found my future husband. We got married and I had a baby. And at that time, I was searching in different, areas. And like many Jews, I found myself a little bit in the New Age. And I was reading, when I was in hospital, was about to have my daughter, I was reading, before that, I was reading a book about Osho. I don't know if you know, some New Age book. And I remember reading the book before that and thinking, oh, what's a great book. It's so encouraging. And, I'm going to continue reading it. And when I was in hospital, I was very afraid because I was afraid that I would have to have a C-section. And I opened the book. I had it with me. I thought, okay, this is going to encourage me. And it was dead to me. Didn't say anything to me, didn't help me in any way. And I remember, even though I didn't know God or Yeshua at that time, I remember thinking to myself, I'm never gonna read anything that is dead again. I want to read something that when I actually need it, it's going to help me. And the only verse I can think about now regarding this is Isaiah 45:5, Ishaya 45:5, אני אדוני ואין עוד זולתי, אין אדוני אערזך ולא ידעתני. So amazing. It's like, I'm the only God, there is nobody else but me. I will, girded you or encircle you, and though you have not known me. And that's exactly what I felt. Like I did not know God, but I needed something that is alive. And that was an interesting thing. That's when I basically finished with New Age. And another verse that comes to my mind is from 1 Kings 18:39, מלכים א' 18:39, וירא כל העם ויפלו על פניהם ויאמרו, אדוני הוא האלוהים, אדוני הוא האלוהים. God, Jehovah Adonai, is the only God. There is no other God. And I kind of felt it, even though I didn't know him back then. So yeah, that was my experience in the hospital. So back in hospital, I was there, as I said, I was having my baby, and I met a friend who also had her baby at the same time, and I didn't have any other friends. I was new in Czech Republic, and found myself at home with a baby, and we became friends. And she was a devout Christian. She really loved the Lord, followed him, and we started talking. She started sharing with me, and It was very interesting for me. And in the beginning, I was, didn't understand much, but I started studying it more. I really loved the way she lived, her lifestyle. It was kind of a testimony for me. At the same time, my mom and my sister started going to church, were invited by totally someone else. It was amazing that God basically surrounded us with believers in a city that is considered to be quite atheist, in a country that is considered to be quite atheist, but will change, God willing, and will be a Christian nation. But anyway, so I remember at that time I was like, searching, interested, and one of the things that kind of crossed my mind, or was a problem for me, I was like, if Yeshua is really the Messiah, how come our nation reject him? How come our people don't know him? The rabbis, nobody accepts him. I never heard about him in that sense in Israel. And that was, intriguing for me. So I started studying it, and in the Bible and in different, places. There wasn't a cell phone or Google or internet or anything at that time, encyclopedia mainly, and things like that. And as I was studying, I realized that through all the Jewish history, there was always just a remnant who believed in God. The majority of the people did not know God and did not believe in him. And there was always a few people, and they were almost always persecuted. And just an example from, for example, 1 Kings 19, 14 and 18, מלכים א', 19, 14 ו-18, ויאמר, קנה קינאתי לאדוני, אלוהי צבאות, כי עזבו בריתך, בני ישראל, את מזבותיך הרסו, ואת נביאיך הרגו בחרב. ויוותר אני לבדי, ויבקשו את נפשי לקחתה. והשארתי בישראל 7,000 כל הברכיים אשר לא חראו לבעל, וכל הפה אשר לא נשק לו. So I'm not going to talk about the whole story that is behind it, but basically God is saying to Elijah, I left 7,000 people who did not worship Baal. Baal was the god they worshipped at that time, the pagan god that the Israelites worshipped as they followed the nations around them. But interesting, 7,000, it's not enough. It's not a lot, And I realized through all the Bible that there was always just a remnant who believed in God. And it kind of makes sense to me, when realizing it, that most of the nation will reject God, and there's always just a few that would follow him. So that was an interesting point. Another interesting point that I have to add is when I finally, decided to accept Yeshua, I remember thinking, am I going to leave Judaism? Am I going to, become a Gentile? And just, kind of like as if God put this thought in my head, is like, do you consider yourself to be a faithful Jewish? I didn't follow anything. I wasn't following God at all before that. I could see that in my life. And so I understand now that when you follow Yeshua, you actually become a complete Jew. You become a real Jew because you really follow the God of the Bible. You do not follow your own ways or some rabbis or some other people that tell you. You follow God. And so that's that, when it clicked and I accepted Yeshua. Now, to accept Yeshua, I really had to realize that he's the one who suffered for us. And this is a very humbling thought. I have to say, I sometimes still struggle with trying to earn my salvation, but it always comes back to Isaiah 53. It's the foundation of our faith for me, as well as I was reading Ishaya 53, 5, 6. These are the verses I chose, which are very profound. והוא מחולל מפשענו, מדוכא מעוונותינו, מוסר שלומנו עליו ובחבורתו נרפא לנו. כולנו כצאן טעינו, איש לדרכו פנינו, ואדוני הפגיע בו את עוון כולנו. So that is such a profound, this is what, touch based for me. I was wondering, I was totally believing in other things, following my own way, believing in a lot of lies that I grew up with, and God inflicted him the iniquities on, or laid on him the iniquities of us all. הפגיע בו את עוון כולנו. This is the basic of my faith, the basic, I believe, of the, Messianic faith, the Christian faith, the real Christian faith, that he's the one who's wounded for us. And when I accepted that really into my heart, that's when I really started seeing changes in my life. So before the changes, I just wanted to read one more verse that had to do with how I accepted him. Romans 10:9-11, אל הרומים 10:9-11. ואם אתה מודה בפיך שישוע הוא האדון, ומאמין בלבבך שאלוהים הקים אותו מן המתים, תיוושע. הרי בליבו מאמין איש ויוצדק, ובפיו יודה ויוושע. והכתוב עליו אומר, כל המאמין בו לא יבוש. So one day, I was like in a certain crisis, a little baby, difficult circumstances, difficult things going on in my life. And I just confessed him that he's the Lord. And I said, basically, I prayed, God, if Yeshua is the Messiah, show me, something like that. And I started to change. I started seeing changes in my life. It wasn't immediately, nothing happened, grandiose lights from the skies or anything like that. But I started seeing changes in my own heart. And this is such a profound thing of our faith, is that it's not something that you see on the outside. Sometimes the outside takes time. Sometimes, you look at a person, you see, I don't really see any changes, but the inside is what's really going on. And then it doesn't stay on the inside. It does goes to the, it does go to the outside. But I threw up a lot of, I threw out a lot of music that I listened to. Mainly it was kind of feminists and this kind of mindset, but not only, I just threw out, I couldn't watch any vulgar movies, with obscene scenes or anything like that. I couldn't watch it anymore. I felt this, I felt that it's disgusting for God, and nobody told me, I didn't think about it before, but it's just, I realized I can't watch these things anymore. And just little by little, it didn't happen, in one, in one immediately. I didn't have horrible, like things like drugs or alcohol, so things that would go away, but it was like slowly things in my heart that started changing. My marriage, the way I raised my kids, everything just started changing. And and one of the things is that you're not going be ashamed of the gospel. And that was something that was on my heart always, to share, to talk to people. I'm a very open person. I like to talk about testimonies in my life. So I was just like, I got a new heart, I have to say. And let's go to the next one about a new heart. So you remember one of the first prophecies that I said, that I put here, is that God is going to bring us to our nation, but it doesn't end there. As Jewish, he's continuing the promise, and that's in Ezekiel 36:25-28, יחזקאל 36:25-28. וזרקתי עליכם מים טהורים, וטהרתם מכל תומותיכם ומכל גילוליכם אטהר אתכם, ונתתי לכם לב חדש ורוח חדשה. אתן בקרבכם, והסירותי את לב האבן מבשרכם, ונתתי לכם לב בשר, ואת רוחי אתן בקרבכם. ועשיתי את אשר בחוקיי תלכו, ומשפטיי תשמרו ועשיתם. וישבתם בארץ אשר נתתי לאבותיכם, והייתם לי לעם, ואנוכי אהיה לכם לאלוהים. What's an amazing promise. And it's amazing that this is exactly what happened in my life. So God, you remember, brought us, my family, my parents, he brought them, I wasn't alive at that time, he brought them from Soviet Union to Israel, as he promised. And then he promised to bring, to sprinkle clean water on you. So this is, when I accepted Yeshua, this is exactly what happened. I received a new heart. I received a heart that understands, I don't want to say understands God, because God, you can't really understand. He's too big, but understand his ways, want to follow him, he took away the heart of stone, and I don't need the commandments written on a stone anymore. It's in my heart, and I feel it. When I read the word, when I sin, when I step out of his will, I feel the Holy Spirit bring me back to his will. So I just find this such an amazing promise of God, and this is exactly what I felt in my life. So I had to put that in, and I'm praying for all of Israel, and I hope you all pray for all Israel to receive this Ruach Hadasha and Lev Chadash, which means a new heart, Lev Chadash, a new heart, and Ruach Hadasha, a new spirit. After I received the Lord, I got, a new desire in my heart, and I had to put it here. Joshua 24-15, Yoshua 24-15. And I'm not going to read the whole verse, but I want to read just the end of it. Ve'anochi uveiti na'avod et Adonai. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And that was always, ever since I came to faith, that was always my heart. I'm a family person. I'm really interested in other families as well, not only mine. And I love it when the whole family serves the Lord. So that was always my prayer. And I had to put that verse here. And I pray that you all, I think it's such an important role as a mother, as a wife, and as any person, to pray for our families, to pray. I think it's such a difference when there is someone who actually continually praying for a family. You could say that I'm a first generation believer because, my mom kind of like we came at the same time. So we are like first generation believers, and it's so important to pray for our families. And so, yeah, that's verse. I had to put it there. Another verse that really was significant, or is significant, has been significant in my walk with the Lord, is Matthew 16:24-27, Mati 16:24-27. אז אמר ישוע לתלמידיו, מי שרוצה לבוא אחריי, שיתכחש לעצמו ויקח את צלבו וילך אחריי. כי החפץ להציל את נפשו יאבד אותה, אבל המאבד את נפשו למעני ימצאנה. מה תועלת תצמח לאדם אם ירוויח את כל העולם ויפסיד את נפשו? או מה ייתן אדם כתמורה בעד נפשו? הן עתיד בן האדם לבוא בכבוד אביו עם הלכה, ואז ישלם לכל איש כמעשהו. From the beginning of my faith, I realized, God showed me that I can believe in Yeshua, but basically kind of live my own life, and or I can really follow him. I don't think we actually have a choice. I think this is the only way we are to walk with him. But I would say there are believers who call themselves believers. I'm not going to judge them, but they don't really follow him. They just, they have their own desires, their own thoughts, and they go to church or to a congregation once, every week. Sometimes they're even devout in that, but you don't see that in their lives. Or there are believers who actually follow the Lord, and they give their lives to the Lord, and they follow him wherever he goes, and it means a lot of sacrifice. And I realized I have to choose, and so I didn't have the possibility to be a lukewarm or just sometimes go to church. And I'm not kind of like saying that I'm such a strong believer or whatever, but I'm just explaining that from the beginning I really had to deny myself and follow the Lord. And in my family I had a lot of I would say kind of persecution against my faith, and I really had to stand firm from the beginning. If you want to follow the Lord, you have to give everything to that. So yeah, that has been something that is just for all the years I've been following the Lord, always very strong in my life. And I believe this is something that we are to do. We follow him. It means that we have to have a very strong relationship with him, because we can't do it on our own. But it's like, and this verse, like, what does it help you if you gain the whole world and lose your soul? So that's always the temptation. The temptation is that, you want to have your own plans and your own goals. And also, when you follow Yeshua, you don't look very interesting, and you're not successful according to the world, if I think about it. But it's not about, the real success is being successful for Yeshua, not for the world, because he's the one who's going to come at the end, and all the other things are going to pass. And I have to say, as older as I become older, I realize that it's very true. I realize that everything is very temporary. Everything is, in the world, everything changes, but he's the rock. Yeshua is the rock. He's never going to change, and his true is always true. So yeah. And the last verse, if you stuck around until now, it's again something that I have in my heart always. Matthew 25:23, מתי 25:23, השיב לו אדוניו יפה, עבד טוב ונאמן, היית נאמן במעט, אפקיד אותך על הרבה, בוא אל שמחת אדונך. If you followed my other videos, Eved Ne'eman is a faithful servant, and that has always been my heart desire, to be a faithful servant for the Lord. And so yeah, that's my testimony, and I'm praying for all of us who are watching, following, to follow the Lord, because he's the real true God. Yeshua is the Messiah, and I can testify with all my life that he's always been there, always directing me, guiding me, and yeah, so I'm just praying for a blessed rest of the week for all of you, and see you in the next video. Shalom from Israel.